Hello everybody, Dreamer. And today we are going to talk about axes. This is a series I'm doing where I'm going over all the weapons and armor in the game. And I like to do them by sections. So the last video was swords. This video is going to be, of course, axes. And I think these are very, very strong too. More of a bruiser type of build than anything. But I do think these are very strong, and I've seen a lot of people take out multiple targets with these. So I definitely think they're in a good position as far as balance. Um, though I really wish they would provide some extra movement on these. Swords are very strong because they provide a nice movement capabilities, and I think they added a new jumping ability, which definitely does help. But I believe that they need a slight tuning in the movement mechanic. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I like to go over the one-handed weapons first, then going into the two-handers, and then of course the dual wielding at the end. So let's get into this. So when it comes to axes, there is quite a few of them, but there's only one-handed axe, battle axe. This is probably this has been my favorite axe for a while now, and this is with all the different changes. They have changed this thing so much over the years, and they actually recently just tuned it again. They changed the E on it, so I'm pretty excited to get into that. Me personally, I like the change a lot. Do like it. But first, we're going to go over the Qs and the Ws and the passives because they all, of course, share the same ones. So let's look at the Rending Strike. It does 180 damage, but it puts a bleed. Bleed reduces the maximum healing as long as there's the max stacks of bleeds. So if they have 3 bleeds, they have a 12% reduced healing. So, really, really strong. Like I said, bruiser focused. It's a 2-second cooldown as well. Alright, now we have a Rending Spin. This is pretty much the same thing, but you spin in a circle, but it has 2 different ranges. Oh, I had the Rending Strike on. Let me switch to that. So it has 2 different ranges. You're going to see 2 circles, and I'll show you that in a second. But we'll go over the stats real quick. So it has a 2.5 meter and a 5 meter, and so it does 150 when they're close to you and 226 when they're far away. But then, of course, it does a bleeding. It does 84 bleeding, which is the same, of course, as Rending Strike. Stacks up to 3 times, and it has that healing reduction. And then this one launches you forward. So it's a launch combo of Rending Smashes. Each hit a cone in front of you. Does 166 damage. Applies a Rending Charge. On the 3rd successive cast, you leap up to 7 meters, rooting them. This is what I mean, like this, I believe this kind of fixed that mobility part just a little bit. The issue, though, is you do have to get to level 85 to get it. So getting from 1 to 85 is definitely going to be a struggle. But once you get that, I believe everyone just uses this, 100%. I believe everyone just uses this, especially for PvP. PvE, they may use this, but PvP, this is just completely outclasses the other ones, in my opinion. But yeah, now let's actually show you the ring. See how there's a small one and there's a big one? You'll want to make sure they're far out like that. Let's head to the X's. Now the W's. This one is just reduces damage resistance, does a nice chunk of damage. Pretty self-explanatory there. This one increases your damage by 25%, your movement speed by 40%, and your attack speed by 40%. This is just a huge buff. This is just a huge buff. Lasts 7 seconds as long as you're hitting people. There's not else much to say to that. Battle Rush. This one charges toward an enemy and decreases healing received from the enemies and increasing healing received to all allies. This is really good for raid content, ZVZ content. Internal Bleeding. This one's going to be quite interesting. So you do an additional 195 to everyone around you, but then when you hit them, you cause them to bleed, dealing 37 physical damage every half a second while they are moving. So not only are they going to have your normal Q bleeds, but they're also going to have this additional bleed as long as they're moving. So keeping them on their toes is just going to make it to where they're receiving a little bit more damage. Now, the damage is pretty nice. You're looking at what, 74 damage a second for 8 seconds. So it's a pretty nice bleed. And then you've got Raging Blades. This just throws blades all around you. Deals 80 magic damage every half a second, so 160 magic damage a second. But then it increases your damage by 4% per enemy hit, stacks up to 10 times. This is super good for like just PvE content. Even PvP, it's pretty good. As long as there's just a lot of people around you, you just hit them a bunch, you'll get a nice damage buff. So yeah, and it only has a 12-second cooldown, which is super nice as well. And then now we have the ease. So this one got changed a lot. So pretty much how this always worked is the amount of bleed charges you had on them, it was the amount of damage and healing you did. Because the healing used to be percentage based on how much damage you did. So the more bleeds you had on them, the more damage you were going to do. And it was a single target attack. But then they changed it to where you threw the axe. It did the same thing. The bleeds affected how much damage it did, but you threw the axe and it went through multiple people. So if you had a bunch of bleeds on a bunch of people and then you threw the axe, you hit them all and you healed for a lot. And honestly, it's not a whole, like, they did change it quite a bit, but not as much as you would think. So you still throw the axe. That still remains the same. But you have 2 charges instead of 1. So if you throw the axe, you will do damage based on the amount of bleeds you do. So 3 bleed charges, tier 8, you're looking at 831 damage. That is a lot. They buffed the damage by a lot. They made this very strong. 10-second cooldown too, man. Oh my gosh, damage is going to be nice. But you can then throw it again. That will add 10 more seconds to the cooldown, though. And if you throw it again, it will do some more damage. But you also will heal for that second bit that you do, right? And they changed it from percentage to just flat number. So that the healing got nerfed a lot, but the damage got buffed, which I thought was fine. Self-healing in this game was broken. Like the merc jacket used to be, every time you did damage, you healed for X amount for like, I think it was like 12 or 15 seconds. I can't remember. Super broken, especially on like axes where you could do dots, because it just said damage. That's it. Any sort of damage you did, you healed. So dots were broken. They did change that to where it had to be direct damage. They increased the healing, but they cut the time in half. I think they balanced that one pretty well. It was broken. It still is very strong though. But anyways, yeah. So this got changed to a flat heal. I like it personally. I like it. You can still hit multiple targets with it. It's still a decent heal, but the damage got a nice buff. And that was the biggest problem I had is it wasn't doing that much damage. So very, very strong. So now let's get to the Great Axe. This is spin to win. You just spin in a circle, hitting everyone. Yeah. So it does increase the damage a little bit, but 15 damage per hit is not that much. So, but yeah, not much to say left on that one. So this one's interesting. So you leap toward the target, and you slam on the ground, dealing a massive 846 physical damage to all enemies in a small little radius. But then it splits the earth in a cone in front, throwing all enemies in the air for 0.6 seconds. There's like a little mini stun there. Then you decrease max and current health by 20%. You take this along with that heavy armor with the health debuff. Holy cow, 30% less HP. Strong. That is super strong. And typically how you would want to look at that is you're not looking at it as, hey, I'm going to kill them because they have less HP. But you're looking at it as, if you do the math, you reducing their full HP by 30% is technically making everyone do 30% more damage. Think about it. So say like they had 100 HP, right? Someone hits them for 20 damage. It's going to take them 5 hits. All right? But you cut their health down by 30%. Now they're at 70 health, right? So you hit them 20 damage. You're looking at a 6.5 or about a 3.5. You know, as long as you do 20, 20, 20. You do another 20. Even if those debuffs go away, they still took a lot more damage. So very, very, very strong. I also did forget to go over the passives, my bad. Deep Cuts is the first one you get. You just apply an extra bleed every 4 hits. It's okay. Life Leech steals 50% of the health for normal attacks. This one's actually pretty good. I usually run Life Leech a lot. It doesn't really heal you, it just gives you a tiny bit more sustain. Tiny bit, though. Increased defenses, pretty self-explanatory. Every 5 hits, you increase your resistances. It's okay. Aggressive Rush every 4 attacks, your damage increases by 8% for 3 seconds. This one's pretty good, too. Honestly, I like to go with the Life Leech. I usually stick with that one. Yeah. Alrighty, next, the Halberd. This one's really good for ZVZs. So you hit everyone around you. 457 physical damage. Nice. But what it does is each rending bleed charge deals 92 physical damage over 6 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. The maximum amount of stacks is... So pretty much what this one does is if any enemy has rending bleed charges, all enemies hit receiving the same number of the charges with the maximum charges. So what that means is if Timmy has 2 charges, Bob has 3, and everyone else has 0, and you hit everyone gets hit by that AoE, everyone's going to receive 3. Because the person with the highest amount of charges have 3 charges on them. And that, in turn, is going to make everyone take less healing. This one is very, very, very strong. You can spread these bleeds like wildfire. When it comes to like large group content, you're for sure going to see one of these halberds out there. Reduce healing is super strong, especially if you mix that with Battle Rush. Yeah, very, very strong. And it does a really good amount of damage, too. So, the Carrion Collar. This is another healing reduction. I don't know if you've noticed a pattern here. Healing received gets debuffed a lot with the axes. So this one's just you throw out a Raven, I think. It hits everyone initially, 398 physical damage, but then you affect him with bleed damage, another 339 over 5 seconds. But then you also reduce their healing by 30%. So if you have this debuff along with the other healing received debuff, there's a lot of debuffing with this one. A lot of healing received debuffs with this axe. Next is going to be the Executional, the Infernal Scythe. This one's really, really good. So you swing your axe around you one time, do 413 physical damage. But then half a second later, you swing again. This damage is based on their current HP. If they're above 40%, you only do 413 damage. You do double damage. I mean, 826 is still good damage. But if they're below 40% HP, you do a massive 917. Massive. You get someone below 40% HP, they're pretty much dead. So this is kind of like the Bloodletter in a way. This is a execution weapon. Like you see someone low on HP, they're dead. If you're low on HP and someone's coming up to you with a scythe, do what you can and run away because they gonna kill you. You gonna die. So super strong. Last is Bear Paws. This used to be one of the only ones that had a leaping function to them. But luckily the Q got an addition to it. But you leap toward the direction, dealing 547 physical damage in a cone in front of you on impact, causing all enemies to bleed, dealing 180 true damage over 6 seconds. This is pretty strong. 180 true damage means that's what they're going to take regardless of the resistances, buffs, debuffs. They are taking 180 damage. So hitting at least one enemy player will reduce the cooldown of this ability by 40%, because it does have a massive 30-second cooldown. So you've got to hit this. You've got to hit this. If you miss it, man, you're punished hard with a 30-second cooldown. But yeah, that pretty much covers axes. Like I said, they're mostly a bruiser weapon. A lot of debuffs. Their bleeds in itself will counter in nature staff's heals, especially if you have all 3 bleeds. You're pretty much just negating the fact that they're receiving those healing over times. But yeah, these things are very, very strong. I love doing solo clear dungeons with the battle axe because of its self-healing, and does a ton of damage. Does a ton of damage. And but see, I threw it once and then I could throw it again. Got a little heal. So, but then we gotta look at the massive cooldown. You got 20-second cooldown there. So if you just want to do it for damage, I like the fact that they give you the option now, right? So you can. It used to be, I think, a 15-second cooldown, but they dropped that by 5 seconds. So they're like, all right, if you just want to do it for damage, 10 seconds. But if you want to do it for healing, you're gonna have to wait longer. I like that added flexibility. So if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see similar content to this one, hit that subscribe button. I plan on going through all the weapons. If you have any suggestions, just let me know in the comments below. I will do whatever y'all ask. So, thank you and have a good day.